All right.
Here we are.
We made it.
We're not sure. We had a couple technical difficulties for a second there, right at the witching hour, but we're here.
As is usual.
Yeah. I blame the operator.
Operator.
Yeah.
Operator error.
Operator error. It is February 24th, Friday, obviously, 7 o'clock or thereabouts. Welcome to the show.
All right, it's working.
Thanks
That's
for
good.
joining us. Yeah. We got a few things to talk about. It's not as heavy a week of weird news, but we filled it up for you.
That's right. Got a few things going on. All right, so I guess we'll start this off. Add another tally to the Clinton body count. This is Clinton aide's bizarre death ruled suicide despite no weapon being found after he was discovered tied to tree with electrical cord wrapped around neck and gunshot wound to the chest. That's
Yeah.
That about sums up like what's going on with these Clinton
These weird suicides
associated with people. Yeah, so it's like it's not like nothing about it screams suicide.
What are you talking about? That sounds like a suicide to me.
Yeah, right.
It's a very clear-cut suicide, sir. I would look suicide first and then have to rule that out, obviously.
Of course.
Naturally.
But it's like...
It's got a Clinton attached to it. It has to be a suicide. Everybody knows that. That's how they work.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very bizarre. I don't know how they came up with this conclusion other than they wanted it. You know, you just because you want something to be a suicide doesn't mean it is a suicide.
Well, it's weird. So it's like, it seems to me like it would just be way easier for them to kill this guy and then say, oh, yeah, it was a murder, but we don't know who was.
Yeah.
We can't find the guy.
We're trying.
We don't know.
We're doing our best.
Yeah, and they're just not. Like, but this is just like... There was another guy that had two bullet wounds in the back of his head.
Yeah.
Suicide.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's again.
How do you like? Why? Why at this point? Why would you
pow,
even
pow.
do that?
Pow, pow, you know. Like
but why even try to
I don't know.
say that it's?
Well, they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it. So why change any? Why change any of the
It's
MO?
a subtle flex showing everybody that they are not above that. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I mean, should we be talking about it?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe
I have no
Hillary
suicidal
Clinton,
tendencies.
Hillary Clinton will come after us personally herself.
Yeah.
She'll show up at the door with a shotgun, like you're gonna shoot yourself in the back of the head with this thing, and that's what your family's gonna believe happened, and you're gonna be tied to a tree. How could he have even shot himself in the chest, tied to the tree with an electrical wire around his neck? Why have something around your neck? If you're like, sure, okay, if you're strangling yourself, that's one way to do it, but you're gonna shoot yourself in the chest with a shotgun blast?
Yeah, with a dissolving gun.
A gun that dissolves, and then it's like
that's the way to do it.
It must have incinerated into a billion pieces.
Well, it's a one-use gun.
Yeah.
The minute you shoot it, it disappears.
Yeah, it vanishes. Well, it enters the shadow realm.
Yeah.
After you shoot, the Clintons. The Clintons have this top secret government technology. You know, we all know this. So that's what they're using.
You know, it's funny because people talking about conspiracy theories. I hate to say that term, but it's people know what it is now, so we just have to get over it. But these Clintons they're wrapped around a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it's hard to say.
Yeah, the guy that was associated with them who was shot in the head twice, back of the head twice. There was the other guy who drove at like 150 miles an hour into a tree or something like that, and I'm pretty sure he himself had expressed concerns that someone might try to do something to him before that happened. And then also, I think he said that he saw somebody tampering with his car. Like he tried to borrow his neighbor's car or something because he had saw somebody tampering with his car. And then that happened.
I don't know, man. It's at this point, I guess they're untouchable. Because
Well,
nobody's
they're
even
definitely
looking into it.
untouchable. You know how many times Bill Clinton was on Epstein's plane? No one fucking cares.
Yeah, they're not even asking questions.
No, well, you're not allowed to.
Well, You know what? I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to see the same thing with the JFK stuff, where things are going to start to trickle out a little bit the older it gets. You know, at some point, I'll bet you they just admit it. They'll just be like, yeah, you know what? We killed him. We killed Epstein.
Epstein?
Yeah.
What about JFK?
I don't know that one. I don't know if they're ever going to delaying it. I don't think they're ever going to admit that, but they'll say they'll soften it up by saying that they knew.
The continued delays are suspect. Mm-hmm. Very suspect, to say the least.
There must be other than the CIA having implications to it. There must be other organizations or entities that have some kind of are worried about taking some fallout from it. Because otherwise, I mean, other than the fact of the CIA, I mean, but people know at this point the CIA are corrupt. Like that the CIA have done things all around the world.
Do they know?
And continue.
Though? I don't think people know. I think people have their head in the sand to all of this. Sure, if you want to know, the information is there.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people don't care to know.
Yeah.
They're not seeking it out. You tell it to them, they'll hand wave it away. That's crazy. You're a crazy conspiracy theorist.
That's it right there.
It's like, okay, but
when you say enough shit.
But these things happened.
When you say enough things. Yeah, you say enough crazy things. It's like, you throw a mix of crazy stuff in there along with the truth and stuff. Nobody knows what to believe. So,
yeah.
This is another one of those cases. But we're not even using common sense at this point. No. Where we accept things like this, it should be no. That's not an acceptable conclusion that he killed himself. Like I think gotta dig deeper, bud.
Yeah, I think there was like a PolitiFact. What was it? PolitiFact is I don't know. There's like an article to talk about. No, he didn't kill himself. It's like okay.
Oh, they actually said that. Somebody actually said that in an article?
Or no, he said it wasn't a murder. Is what it was.
Okay.
They said no, it's not a murder.
Right, okay.
But it was like an attempt to be a fact checking thing to it.
Okay, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to think about this kind of stuff anymore. We were just talking about this today. It's how things are just so absurd. We live in such a banana republic that it's hard to even know what's real and what isn't real. Are there actually aliens? Are they not? Or is that
right?
Like there's just so many things now that people just get numb to it. I think there's so much information out there, and it's people just get numb and go, I don't even want to think about that because I don't know what to think, and I'd rather just concern myself with my regular life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, or fortunate, whatever way you want to look at it, we actually have to be. We have to get in the mix of the crazy and try and understand some of this stuff, whether it's real, whether it's fake or what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though.
Oh, for sure.
So we just definitely stay on the route of conspiracy theories somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Moving into this next little topic here.
This one's fun.
15-minute cities.
Yeah.
So, like, I've heard about this before. As I understand it, the concept is a city where everything is within a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
Of everything else.
Essentially, yeah. This was. I'll read the article here. I've kind of parsed it for you, so we don't have to go through the whole thing. But here it is as it is. As governments become increasingly focused on climate change and sustainability, many urban planners are looking for ways to help city dwellers become less dependent on cars. One way to do this, they say, is by keeping essentials for daily life, entertainment, shopping, green space, work, and school close to home. The term 15-minute city is not a new one. It was coined back in 2016 by Carlos Moreno, an associate professor at Sorbonne University Business School in Paris, France. In a 2020 TED Talk, Moreno outlines the idea of the 15-minute city, which boils down to giving area inhabitants access to the essential services they need to live, learn, and thrive within their immediate vicinity. Ideally, residents should be able to walk or bike to work, groceries, healthcare, and more in approximately a quarter of an hour, he says. In 2021, Moreno won the Obel Award, for developing the concept. We need to broaden our focus to include different densities and territories, from the small cities to the mid-sized cities and even to the rural territories, he said at the time. We need to keep the concept of the 15-minute city but imagine new ways to implement its principle of proximity in other densities. And while the concept has been picked up by a bunch of cities, Paris adopted the concept in 2020, and a group of cities in the UK will begin piloting their own plans next year. It's Edmonton, Canada's recent interest that's been causing a bunch of hullabaloo in Canada. So the mayor of Edmonton, I won't bother with his name because I don't think anybody's going to even know or care, has been peddling the city's proposal to create its 15-minute districts by, in his words, widening sidewalks or multi-use trails that encourage walking or sustainable infrastructure in communities where they make sense. But as the idea picks up steam in Canada, it's also sparked controversy. Mildly concerned citizens argue that 15-minute cities will increase isolation, while more zealous dissenters have imagined scenarios where citizen movement is monitored through surveillance, or that people are fined for leaving their neighborhoods, which is oddly enough something they were doing in Oxford, right?
Yep.
So it's not something that people are just dreaming up. While these ideas...
these people are crazy.
Right, yeah,
crazy.
exactly.
Why would they even think that? Why would anybody think that the government might try to do something like that?
Exactly. Like, no, they would never do that. They didn't do that.
They tried to make it illegal to go outside during the flu.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'll finish this up. While these ideas, which have thoroughly been debunked as conspiracy theories here, have gained traction overseas, Edmonton City Council is the latest subject of the backlash. Despite never saying that they plan to limit travel between neighborhoods and clarifying that they simply are interested in creating more walkable neighborhoods, it hasn't stopped people from protesting the idea and spreading misinformation. I love these articles that talk about that kind of thing. They want to mix that little bit in there, spreading misinformation. Okay, in December, Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson retweeted a tweet containing false information about 15-minute cities. Again, retweeted. Listen to this tweet. Tell me if this is false information. The idea that neighborhoods should be walkable is lovely. The idea that idiot tyrannical bureaucrats can decide by fiat where you're allowed to drive is perhaps the worst imaginable perversion of that idea, and make no mistake, it's part of a well-documented plan, Peterson wrote. So that's probably the part that they're saying is conspiracy theory or whatever, or misinformation. A lot of the concern about 15-minute cities, notes Vice magazine, is the fact that the concept has been discussed and promoted by the World Economic Forum. And they claim it's not about restricting movement or monitoring and tracking people, but more about development planning and climate initiatives. So, of course, that's what they're going to say. That's basically the end of that article.
Well, yeah. It's like, listen, you can't leave your home for your safety.
Right.
Right? Like, these things are always coded in this, we have your best interest out in mind.
Yeah.
I think the COVID situation told us entirely that that's completely false. That's just not true at all.
Absolutely.
But I just love that they just so flippantly say, like, while these ideas which have thoroughly been debunked as conspiracy theories, like, what do you mean debunked?
And how have they been thoroughly debunked?
What are you even talking about, right? Like so you propose this thing, and people are like, that doesn't sound good. Like, that sounds like it's very easily abusable for these things, like tracking people's movement and keeping them stuck in particular areas, limiting their transportation, and even just tracking people in general. Especially after the COVID thing, which they tried to do, like, very, like, they really tried to track everything. Yeah. So people are like, hey, I don't know that the government should even have the ability to do that. So this is concerning. And they're like, no, that's a debunked conspiracy theory. It's like, what are you... Like, exactly. The fact that you feel like you have to come out and say that tells me that the thing that the so-called conspiracy theorist is saying might happen is exactly what you're trying to do. Because there's no, like, you can't debunk that.
Like, look what Art's saying. This goes into a point I was just about to make. It says it's all under the guise of carbon emissions control, the new COVID-style control narrative. Yeah, that's exactly it. So, like, now, so think about this. For example, you live in an urban area that has this 15-minute city model working. You've used up your carbon footprint. You have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever the heck you've got across town in another district, another 15-minute district in the city, and now you can't get there because number one, you've used your allotment.
You're not allowed to drive.
You're not allowed to drive.
You're not allowed to cross over the checkpoint.
Yeah, and it's okay. We're outside of the time when you're allowed. That's another thing they're talking about. They're talking about using this as like as like a travel restriction for like high traffic times. Okay, so I want to go see my girlfriend at 5:00 in the afternoon. Oh, I can't do that? Well, because that's inside of a high traffic. These are weird controls that we would allow in simple little doses. So it's like, oh, well, this makes sense for traffic. Well, we'll do that. Or maybe
this is an element of human psychology that I will genuinely never fully understand. Because I don't get why they want such strict control over people. Like, on some level, I understand it, because it's like, okay, if you're going to do, you're gearing up to do things that pretty much everybody agrees are just evil things or completely like morally detestable things, and so you want people to be controlled so that you don't have to worry about them coming after you, right? They're not going to be able to organize to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. But like, why? So maybe that's the perspective of like the elites that are enacting these things. What about the people that are like eating it up and saying it's a good thing to have all of these things done to us, all of these restrictions to be put in place? Like, what is their perspective of it? Like, why? Like, prosperity stems from freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what the United States basically showed the world. And if you really are a control freak, well, you can control a lot. Like, you control what happens in your business, what happens in your house, or whatever.
This is what I think. I think it's all kind of like these small sips that we've been taking. So, for example, with your phone and things like that, we know that they're spying on you. We know that they're gathering information. They use it for advertising purposes. I understand that. I don't care, right? I kind of like it. To be honest, I'm like, okay, yeah, then good. You'll target advertisements to me. I'm not an idiot. I'm not so crazy with my money or spontaneous that I'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna buy everything that you tell me to buy. You know, I'm not that way. So I'm good with that information. But well-minded people will think, okay, so if we have surveillance in neighborhoods, and we have all these kinds of, then we can use it to thwart crime. We can do all these different things, but they don't think about the nefarious angle where somebody who wants to maintain control and power will utilize that to that end. And like Art says over here, there's a movie with Justin Timberlake, something about time, where it's everyone has a
certain amount of time.
A certain amount of time, right? So it'd be very easy, like he's saying, that they could use like carbon credits to that effect. Mm-hmm. So now you only have a certain amount of carbon credits, and that becomes a whole other thing. Okay, Tyler, you're not going to use your carbon credits this month. Can I buy your carbon credits off of you so I can now travel to go see my girlfriend across town? It's a sick dystopian sort of idea.
It's a setup for all of that.
Right. It sounds like it has a nice ring to it. Like, oh yeah, you can walk and stuff.
It's like I think I've heard this described. It's like Brave New World, 1984, and Animal Farm just mushed together. We're doing all of it.
Yeah.
Like
I hope, unfortunately, because we're in Canada, I think we'll see a lot of this kind of thing because we're progressive on that idea, and our government seems to be wrapped in this idea of the World Economic Forum and all that peddling garbage. So I could see us being sort of one of the pioneer
test
monkey countries for those kinds of things. I'll tell you though, that would be something that would make me move somewhere else. Yeah, I wouldn't be putting up with that kind of thing. Quick. Yeah, scary stuff. We'll go on to another sort of scary thing, but
a little less scary for different reasons.
Right, exactly. Okay, so
in China, I guess this was in China. They've built in this one city. They've built a lane for people that they're calling zombie pedestrians, people that are buried in their phones.
I have an instance where this happened to me the other day, where I was driving and a guy was literally walking down the middle of the road looking at his phone, and he had no idea I was coming up behind him. So I'll read the article again. This is a fairly short article. I didn't want to read it all, so I'll just give you the gist of the article here. So the Chinese city has become the first in the world to create a special walking lane for zombie pedestrians hooked to their mobile phones. Over 100 feet of pavement on Shenzhen, I guess whatever it is, has been marked with special paint to direct people who just can't take their eyes off their screens. Phone addiction has become a huge problem in China, which has a population of 1.3 billion currently, obviously dropping as we know, where dawdling app addicts are holding up those in a hurry behind them. New pavement along Foreigner Street has the word cell phones painted on the ground along with arrows that mark out a separate walking lane. How pathetic that we have to, like sheep, we're just being herded. And in the next lane, a no cell phone sign marks out a clear pathway for those who are in a rush. Officials reportedly designed the unique venture to remind pedestrians it is best to not play with your phone while walking. Oh my God. In 2012, the Philadelphia mayor's office set up a similar scheme as part of an April Fool's Day prank. Officials sent a press release to all media describing a pilot program for an e-lane, a designated space for pedestrians who prefer to stroll while on their phones. Mayor Nutter said, "Stand on any sidewalk in Philadelphia, you will see fellow citizens with busy lives who can't take the time to look up from their iPhones, Blackberries, and other electronic devices. The e-lane is a safe and convenient option for those distracted walkers and should make sidewalks safer for the rest of us." Wow. Well, at least somebody's taking it as a joke. However, there was a serious message behind the stunt, as the mayor office worker Andrew Stober pointed out. A pedestrian is stuck in a car once every 4 hours in the city. He said too many of those incidents come from actually distracted driving and drunk driving and drivers not doing what they should do. But pedestrians also have a role to play. It's something that we see all over the city. Pedestrians who aren't paying attention, it's one of the first things you're taught growing up. Look both ways before you cross the street. So pathetic that we're treating...
that we got to this point.
Yeah. Well, it's the...
But people are so mindless. They're genuinely mindless.
Yeah.
Like, you see it on people who just aren't on their phones. They're oblivious to everyone around them and everything that's going on around them.
Yeah.
You see it all the time.
Well, you think about it. These things have distracted us so much that we can't even look up for anything. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes sense in a way to control people in that regard. Like, it's sad that we've had to do these, no texting and no calling while you're in a car. But I don't disagree with those laws because realistically, you see it. You can tell when you're behind somebody.
Yeah.
First thing you go, they're on their phone. You pull up alongside and the idiot's on their phone. And they're swerving all over the place. They have no idea what's going on. So unfortunately, a lot of bad apples make it bad for everybody. But, I agree at least with the fine of those kinds of things. But at the same time, I would disagree with any restrictions that would cause you to maybe you couldn't bring your phone into your car in order to start your car or some bullshit that they could.
Yes, fucking weird stuff
do.
like that is too far.
Yeah. Like what's already say here? I think all of these control events is an attempt to see how far the goalpost can be moved. Every event is an incremental diminishing of rights. Of course, yeah. Of course. Yeah, we start with small bites, right? You don't eat an elephant all in one bite. But you can do it in small bites.
A little thing at a time.
Right. So this is kind of like one of those things. It's funny that it's starting in China.
Well, yeah. It's
not
weird.
Funny.
It's yeah, like it's just weird to me that this is a problem.
I would never have thought growing up that anything like this would be a thing. Mm-hmm. It seems
here we are.
I would think children understand this kind of thing, but
yeah.
I don't know. It's like dumb us down.
Is this maybe a spike in narcissism?
Well, of course there would be, obviously, right?
Yeah.
People doing smaller, more personal versions of what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna broadcast on my phone. Look at me. I'm gonna TikTok in the middle of the road. Yeah, some crazy stuff. So we'll go on to the next one that we're going to talk about, which is kind of a funny, stupid topic.
Yeah, this is kind of funny because I guess South Park went after Prince Harry.
Hey, you didn't watch the episode?
No,
right?
I haven't.
I did.
I think I heard about it.
It's hilarious. It's quite funny. Yeah, they were ruthless with them, and they didn't just go after them. They went after like the whole culture of like victimhood,
Right, this opposite. Yeah, they're making a big scene saying they don't want people, they want privacy, they don't want people to be looking at them, but like they're making a scene about it.
Yeah. So there's a small article on this. I'll read it. It's not there's not a lot to it, so it'll just kind of give you a little synopsis of what it's about. They talk about essentially there's some, I don't know if it's misinformation or not, but there's some information about that they're getting pretty butthurt about this, and then they might sue. But here we go. Okay, so the response follows days of articles stating that the Duchess of Sussex was distinctly unhappy about Matt Stone and Trey Parker's depiction of the couple. The Spectator had claimed that she was upset and overwhelmed by the show and that she was annoyed by South Park but refuses to watch it all, despite it being unclear who the source was. A Fox News source even went as far as to suggest that the episode could result in legal action. Royal commentator Neil Sean claimed that the Sussexes, that's tough to say, representatives were now watching the series closely for more attacks. According to sources close to the ex-royals, it appears that, like so many other things with Meghan and Harry, this may have legal ramifications attached. He said, seemingly incorrectly, their legal team is casting an eye over the episode to see what is wrong and what could be turned into something more sinister. So anyway, it goes on a little bit more, but it's basically in the episode. Here's a little synopsis with the episode. It's the royal couple. They move into a house across from one of the main character, Kyle's house. And as part of their quest for a life free from media intrusion and attention, they stage a bunch of different stuff. So they'll play the drums loudly. Like he plays the drums loudly in the street. And then when people look, they're like, "Hey, what are you looking at? We want privacy." And so then they'll do fireworks at night and stuff, and just all this stuff to get attention on them. And then they yell and we want our privacy. And then it ends up going into like a scene later where it shows that they've actually been changing their reputation with this company, and it always ends in victim, which is funny. So it'll be like, I'm caring, honest, fun, victim. And it's every one of the different things. It always ends in victim, which is funny. Yeah. So that's their little shot, I guess, at
always victimized,
at the victimized
no matter
culture.
what.
Yeah. So, anyways, but
don't look at us. But I'm gonna be doing crazy stuff over here.
Right.
But don't look.
Exactly. Don't look at me. It's like we've just talked about this with like the gym girls.
Yeah.
You know, don't look at me.
Yeah, you wear.
But I'm gonna wear
nothing
near
to the
see-through
gym.
stuff.
But don't you dare look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently, the article anyways gets to the point where they're saying that they're not going to be suing. We'll see. I don't know. I could see them suing.
I don't think so. What do they have to gain?
Oh, I would agree.
They
but
literally
common
have
sense,
all the money in the world.
Yeah, common sense would say that they wouldn't do it, but at the same time, I don't think any of this is...
Yeah, there's a lot of things people do that don't make any sense.
Right. So I don't know what to take on this one. This could be, the media machine jumping all over it to get a story off of it. Who knows? Anything attached to these two buffoons seems to be a little bit hot. It's full of controversy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a big stinking pile.
Wasn't Prince Harry the one that was buddy with Epstein?
Was it? I don't know.
I think it might have been.
Jeez. I don't know if we should say that without vetting it.
I think we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Tyler will retract that if he's wrong.
I will not.
Put a comment in there if you know something, but cite your sources. Sometimes we get comments where people will say something, they don't want to cite a source.
Do you think when the queen died, they all like drank her blood or some weird shit in a ritual?
No, because she's
they're
old.
fucking weird.
No, because she's old.
Yeah, but it's some weird.
Don't they want the young ones?
Yeah, well, that's just for longevity. But as some weird ritual thing, like, man, these elites, they get up to some stuff.
Well, I think the weirdest thing about it is the idea of incest. Like back in the day, where they were like keeping royal bloodlines, so they would literally have cousins and even brothers and sisters at times.
Yeah, they were wrong about that.
Yeah, like that.
They were really wrong
Yeah, you were
about
very
that.
wrong. That just creates like goofy eyes.
Makes it worse. Yeah, goofy eyes. King Goofy Eyes.
That's the way they get goofy eyes.
Yeah.
And a touch of the tards on that one.
Or it's just the full thing.
Or the full tard.
Yeah, you never know, really.
Yeah, so. All right. Well, that's kind of at least a fun thing we talk about there, but next thing I would say is not as fun. This is
Yeah,
scary
this gets
stuff.
into the serious stuff. An endless war in Ukraine. This is something that we are seeing manifesting in front of us. Like, they're not backing down.
Sadly, it's with something like this, it starts from a good place or seemingly a good place, and everybody gets behind it because it's like, yeah, no, we don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
But this
She's a full-on war at this
Right.
point, like between the U.S., maybe technically all of NATO, but it's like a weird thing that the U.S. has with Russia. They want to be at war, but they don't want to be at war. So they're going to do everything that they can to be at war without being at war.
Right.
Right? They're just going to support Ukraine, and they're going to stay until it's done with no clarification on what that means.
Well, let me read this article. This is part of a transcript of Tucker Carlson's show. If whether you're a fan or not, I think when you don't watch him and you hear it read, what the transcript says, I think it could be from anybody with common sense. So I think you should try and if someone's watching this and they have a disdain for Tucker, try and take it for what it's being said.
They aren't capable of that, though, right?
Yeah. Well,
like you're asking a cat to ask politely with words for its food when it's hungry.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
Is that going to happen? Is
I don't
that
like
ever?
cats because they can't talk.
Is that ever going to happen?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But here we go. Listen anyway, and make your own opinions, I suppose. Okay. So, how to influence America's greatest possible advantage is the most important task that faces any U.S. government. Nothing else comes close to that. Sadly, the Biden administration, geriatric and irrational in its best moments, is not up to the task. No one in the White House even seems aware that the architecture of the world is changing. They call themselves progressives, but the Biden people think it's 1961, when American power seemed unlimited. Just today, our elderly Treasury Secretary scolded the Chinese government like a tardy servant, sorry. Shape up, China. We'll send you back to the cellar. So here's what Janet Yellen said. We have made clear that providing material support to Russia or assistance with any type of systemic sanctions evasion would be a very serious concern to us, and we will certainly continue to make clear to the Chinese government and to companies and banks in their jurisdiction about what the rules are regarding our sanctions and the serious consequences they would face for violating them. We're going to tell them what the rules are. Once they hear the rules, they'll obey. This is Tucker now talking. Janet Yellen seems shocked and outraged that China has decided to align with Putin in the war in Ukraine. It's an outrage. It's unbelievable. Who could have seen this coming? Well, almost everybody, actually. It was obvious to the world it was going to happen because it was always going to happen if we didn't force a peace in Ukraine. But somehow the Biden administration didn't see this coming. Now that it has happened, now that the world's largest country has joined with the world's largest economy, which also has the world's largest population, in order to fight a war against us, what will we do? Well, if you're Janet Yellen, you just order them to stop. Stop it, you naughty Chinese, stop it. Otherwise, we will impose some serious consequences on you. We can't tell you what they are, but trust us, they're serious. And they might even include further statements of outrage. So I'm going to summarize this little bit here where it talks about basically how everybody has this one talking point. It's very funny when you watch it
Right. It's clearly coordinated.
Exactly.
Right?
So if you watch this video, you'll see that everybody has this. You see it all the time. Yes. Was that squeaking the table?
That didn't sound. You just seem like a crazy person. Like, what do you?
That's true. I guess it wouldn't have been heard. Anyways, okay, I'm a crazy person. But here's sorry. Here's what they were saying. So this is President Biden. He said, "Freedom is priceless. It's worth fighting for as long as it takes, and that's how we're going to be with you, Mr. President, for as long as it takes." And then John Kirby, as the president has said, and we're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Kamala Harris, again, the United States will continue to strongly support Ukraine, and we will do so for as long as it takes. Janet Yellen, as President Biden has said, we will stand with Ukraine and its fight for as long as it takes. Like, do they?
As long as it takes For what?
Exactly, and that's the thing. It goes on. This video goes on for about 14 minutes, right? But the general point of it is to show you that the goalposts just continue to move.
Yeah.
And the amount of money spent there is climbing, and would be obviously better served here at home, right? For infrastructure and things like that Ohio spill. But it's like there's no clear objective at this point. Is it? Right. So what do you want to happen here? Do you want the Ukraine to take Crimea? Crimea. That's it. Do you want them to take that and then stop there? Like, it seems like there's no end to it. It's basically the collapse of the Russian government.
That's what it seems like. They just want to get rid of Putin.
And how do you do that? How is that a goal, a reasonable goal, where you think you can attain that, and people are just going to say, well, okay, we'll just collapse then? Or are they going to fight and they're going to use all the different weapons at their disposal?
Yeah.
And we know the kind of
weapons. I think they've wanted a war with Russia for a long time.
Right.
And I think now they're seeing their opportunity to push into one.
Well, we've talked about this before.
And they're using the Ukraine thing as propaganda to garner support from the normies that don't know fuck all about anything.
Right. Well, we've talked about this before on other podcasts where it's when not to say that necessarily, I think you believe this, but not to say necessarily that the U.S. Is collapsing as a nation, but in the death throes of a nation, when they are collapsing, they do erratic things. And this seems like an erratic thing, where you're going to now call on war with two of the other
it's a world war.
Nuclear powers.
Regardless, it's a world war. Right. But Art said, this is the result of the incendiary actions of the U.S. In 2014, U.S. intervened in Donetsk and Luhansk, I don't know how to pronounce these things. Predominantly Russian areas, really never part of Ukraine. U.S. meddles, which escalates violence. And yet, fuck, man, the U.S. has been meddling in everything, everywhere for decades now.
Right.
And, other countries have a right to be pissed.
Yeah. And I mean, if they just continued to meddle the way they normally meddle, where they kind of, where they do things that they accuse other countries of doing over here, which is funny, meddling with elections and things like that.
Yeah.
If they were to do that kind of thing, it would probably be relatively tolerated.
Yeah. And he says Putin is more pragmatic than past leaders. I don't think he nukes. I don't know.
I tend to agree with that. I don't think he does either. But
I think
you corner a cat.
Nukes are on the table.
Yeah. You corner a cat, though, and you don't know what they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
If he knows that there's no end to this without the absolute destruction of Russia, and that ends up being something that looks like it's going to happen, what's going to stop him?
Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Unless he's completely rational, which I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of a perfect segue into our last little thing here.
Right.
Where Russia has suspended the only remaining major nuclear treaty with the U.S. It probably didn't really exist anymore, but it's now it's just there's no more agreements.
Yeah.
There's nothing on paper anymore that's no, we're not going to do nuclear stuff.
Because at least with the Cold War, there was that stability of the idea that nobody was going to throw a nuke. Nobody was going to drop a bomb like that. You could do all this other little bullshit. All these little, whatever you want to call them, these little tactical advancements and things that they would do to try and push either's ideology, whether Western or the Soviets. But there was never a real. I think they would try and play like there was a real danger of it. Obviously, with the Cuban Missile Crisis and that stage sort of thing. I mean, there was these ideas that it might happen, but it never did. It was always just sort of it was kind of like the equivalent of the U.S.-China right now. It was always like that. It was like there was this rivalry, this battle for economic dominance, if you will, and world influence dominance, but never a real hot war.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're getting to a point that we have a hot war now.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to a point where it's just like, who does it first?
Well, I don't think anybody thought in 1939 that Germany was going to do what they did.
No.
Like they thought they were going to advance. They were going to do some things. They were going to take back some of the territories that they lost from the Treaty of Versailles and all that. And they would take back that stuff. And okay. And I think everybody expected them to do it. They just thought, I think they probably thought, wow, we got away with 20 years of this. That now that they're just going to do that kind of thing. But then they just kept advancing and kept moving, and I think it caught everyone off guard. It's the same as this. Like this this is like a small
Except there
fire.
there isn't a continuous advance. Right. So it's been a year and it hasn't really escalated. It's not like Russia annexed all of Ukraine and is posturing at Poland, which makes it more interesting that the U.S. is doing what it's doing, because now it's like it's almost like they're poking it. Like they're literally they're poking the bear, literally. Like they're trying to be like, come on, let's get something going here.
Yeah, it's almost as if they
like it almost makes you wonder if like Putin is the reasonable one in this situation, sitting back being like, they fucking really want to escalate to something really serious, and like this is just a small little thing, a little conflict that we have. Like they have their reasons for wanting to go into Ukraine that I'm sure probably makes sense. Like if you sat down with Putin, like you could probably be like, oh, okay, I see what you're coming from. This idea that it's like this evil thing for fucking, that's stupid. That's dumb.
That's always stupid.
No one acts like that. No one's like a TV fucking villain.
Right.
Like
when you don't want to see and understand the perspective of your enemy, you're obtuse or you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're like it's either deliberate or you're just dumb.
Yeah, so it's like what's happening here? Like ultimately, so where does this go? Does this turn into a big? Where does China step in? Does China maybe take advantage of the U.S. being a little bit focused on Ukraine and invade Taiwan all of a sudden? And then what happens? Now the U.S. has to split their shit up, because now they have to go to Taiwan. I don't think economically the United States can afford to just leave Taiwan to succumb to China.
Right.
And then Russia can make more advances on Ukraine. Maybe even China has the ability to circle around and come into Ukraine to support Russia to push that way. So now you got two fronts, and now the U.S. is split, and the rest of the world, like who else can really do much of anything? Like sure, the entire Western world will come together, but like Germany literally doesn't have a military really at the moment. They have
India's
nothing.
Going to come out of nowhere. Nobody's even see it coming. India's just going to come out of nowhere. They're going to have this military. We had no idea, under the sand or something. It's just,
under the
here
sand.
It is. And they're just going to show up.
Well, India will be on our side. They'll fight China.
Oh yeah, India and China have not gotten along ever.
There's been a lot of conflicts at the border there. But
I have a feeling. I think this is just what I suspect. I suspect that Putin's playing the long game. He's waiting for the next election cycle to see what happens, and he knows if a Republican gets in, it'll be a lot different of a situation. It'll be a lot more of a negotiable situation.
Yeah.
The right Republican anyway. I mean, it depends on if you get some of these.
I think he waited for Trump to be out.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think he smelled
They were
weakness.
posturing about it beforehand, but he didn't do anything when Trump was in. I think that's because they reasonably thought that Trump's a little bit nutty.
Yeah.
He might do something if we do. So you know what? Let's hold off. Let's wait for, a corpse.
Yeah.
Once the U.S. is run by a corpse, then we can make our move.
Yeah. Once that puppet's in there and he
then
has no idea what's going on. You know what? We've talked about this before too on another podcast where we were talking about war games, where I think some of the highest level people in the world probably just play war games. You really never know if they're having these secret backwater discussions. Leaders all over the world are saying, okay, well, let's play war for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do X, Y, but we'll play war. And it's going to be good for us, bad for the people, but fuck them. We'll line our pockets and
fuck off.
And then we'll call it a day. Sorry says they will support
China.
China.
India is part of BRICS.
Yeah.
Which, what is it's like?
BRICS is the it's Brazil,
It's Brazil,
Russia,
Russia, India, China.
What's the S stand for? Spain?
Spain? No.
No. Spain's one of the dead ones.
Sexyville.
Most likely.
Why am I blanking
Sweden,
on countries with S? No. Anyway, yeah, he says that they will support China as they are involved in support for usurping the petrodollar.
It's the pigs that's.
But I don't know if that's necessarily the case
Spain.
because there's a lot of conflict at the Indian border.
Africa.
Oh, that makes sense. There's a lot of conflict at the Indian border of China, like pushing in there and doing things in their territory, and like people have been killed in little skirmishes that have happened there. So I wonder if India might not necessarily be on China's side in a full-on war.
The problem with India is they're right in the middle of a hotbed in the world, right? They've got Pakistan, the side where they've never gotten along with Pakistan for forever, and they still don't. Then you've got all this, hotbed of weirdness in the Middle East that they're right neighboring on. You've got Afghanistan, like you've got all this, and then China, like they're right. Surrounded by all kinds of hostile type territory. That I think they've just got to kind of sit back and shut up, not say too much, and just build themselves up, get themselves up to speed because they're about 50 years behind.
Yeah.
So get themselves up to speed, and then they could be a big power in the world, right?
Yeah.
I could see a big shift in the next 50 years of China and India. I mean, China, I don't know because China may have exhausted themselves quickly, but like where you could see India and different countries that step to now and become some of the world dominating economies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough to say. I think this next election cycle will be massive.
Yeah.
For what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like if the Democrats get back in and they put whatever puppet they're going to put in, which who I think it's going to be.
One of the Obamas.
Michelle Obama. Yeah, it has to be a Michelle. Can't be the other one. If Michelle gets in, then yeah. And you got your player in there. The only thing about her is I think she could be strong on some foreign affairs. Like as Obama was.
Did you see the press secretary say the President Obama said something? She was reading. She was reading. And she said President Obama reading. She wasn't. Yeah. Didn't have something memorized where she was just saying it. She had this thing in front of her that she was reading, and she said President Obama, and then she said, Biden. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's
maybe
bizarre.
the Obamas are involved in some way. I don't know that. What the hell?
A lot of people just say that that Biden is a shell government and that Obama's still in control essentially.
Well, he's definitely a shell.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tie this whole thing into the UFO stuff because this is interesting. The nuclear treaties, one of the ideas that I've heard put forward is that one of the reasons that the UFO sort of topic is so severely covered up and like you don't talk about it or it's not a thing, it's hidden in everything. Gavin Newsom is also a likely option.
That's
really?
True.
For president?
Oh, they've been talking about him. Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you. That's who I know. It's funny because I was going to bring that up. Well, he's got all the right connections, right?
I really don't think he's viable.
Yeah. I don't know. But if it comes down to him and Obama, though, I think Obama is like the squeaky clean person. Anyways.
But yeah. So one of the things about the UFOs is it, the idea is that.
Oh, by the way, sorry. Welcome back, Gizzo.
Yeah, one of those. One of the ideas is that some of the technology or all of the technology that is the UFOs that's doing the stuff it's secret U.S. government stuff, and it uses some sort of nuclear power, and the reason they can't come out and just like. Say, hey, we figured this stuff out is because they have a treaty specifically with like Russia to not make any more vehicles that use nuclear power, like nuclear subs or anything. It's like, hey, we're not going to build any more of these things. And then they go and they do it, and they figure out a way to use it to make these fucking crazy things that fly around. And they're like, yeah, but actually we can't, like, we have to keep this secret, and, you know, maybe do whatever we can to make people think that it's aliens, because if they figure out it's us that did that, it violates this treaty. Right? And we don't want that.
Do you think any of that is any relation to some of the stuff we've seen over the last little bit? Some of the weird things in the sky that they've shot down?
Those are weird. I mean, obviously the one was a balloon. One might have been a hobby balloon.
The one was the size of a car, though.
Yeah, a lot smaller. Yeah. And one was like octagonal, which is a weird shape. So those could have just, I don't know what those would have been, because I'm completely torn. Like, I don't necessarily think that there's a high chance that they were like alien,
right? Because
when you look at some of the encounters, like the Nimitz David Fravor encounter with the Tic Tac zipping around, the maneuverability and like the functionality of that thing would have been impossible to shoot down,
right?
So like when you say, okay, well, if the alien stuff is like that, we assume that that's the alien stuff, then there's no chance that they shot one of those down.
Sure.
So then it's like, well, what is it? And it could be drones. Like, it could be weirdly shaped balloons, maybe more likely drones or some other technology from another government. I think that
the most likely would be Russia, though, because of where they came from. Right?
Possibly, or China. Like,
yeah, China.
At this point, it doesn't really matter. Like, we've figured out how to go around the globe, right? So
yeah,
it doesn't.
It's just where they came from, the direction they came from, coming over Alaska and Canada. It would make the most sense that it would be Russia.
I think it makes equal sense that it'd be China. It makes sense for China to go that way.
I mean, they could, because I don't think Russia would give them a problem.
Yeah, I think that they could go through Russia, or they could park their boats in like Russian waters and do something. But what was I going to say? I think what happened was when that spy balloon went over, they kind of turned up the sensitivity of their radar so that they could pick up things that were smaller that they weren't picking up before.
Right.
And then they got a bunch of hits,
right,
and they scrambled, and they went and shot a bunch of them down. And I think that might have been the case, and those things might have just been things from other countries that they've been doing in our airspace for a while, and right, that they just haven't really picked up.
Right. What's Gizo saying here?
Yeah, he said the balloon bullshit was to bang the war drums with China and distract from the fact we pulled a Pearl Harbor on Nord Stream in the Baltic. And
that's a good
realistically,
point.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
That's yeah,
that's a really good point.
100%. That's why
I didn't even think about that perspective, to be honest. But yeah, that's
throw all this. It was like 4 in 4 days. 4 things shot down. Yeah. Once they shut down,
they stopped talking about the Nordic thing.
Yeah.
In a jiff, right?
That's true. Who was it? There was like a whole journalist thing that kind of basically exposed that it was the United States that did it. You go to Aerostar, they've had a spy balloon program with the Pentagon. It says, well, I imagine the Pentagon have their spy balloons. I imagine there are fucking spy balloons everywhere.
Yeah.
Of all, like, spy planes, spy balloons, satellites, all drones,
this
shit.
You name it. They got all this shit.
And many countries are doing it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So it is really interesting that it just all of this stuff happens, and it does happen at the same time as the Nordstrom stuff.
That's true. That's funny. I didn't even think about that perspective.
Nice little distraction there.
Thanks for that, buddy. I didn't even think about that.
Be ambiguous about it, and then no one will know. So that's probably.
It's just it's funny too, because they there was a lot of heat on them to have to essentially say something about it, whether they admit it or not. They have to say something about it, and they admitted it prior to doing it, that they were going to do it. You know, so it's it's that pure. Hey, no, look over here. Don't worry about that anymore. Look over here. We got these fucking unidentified flying objects over the country, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that name Seymour Hersh is the guy that exposed that it was the U.S. that did the Nord Stream thing. I think that's what
is that what it was? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We should have been talking about that on one of our podcasts.
Well, we were distracted by the balloons.
I was gonna say it worked perfectly.
All these fucking balloons, these things that are being shot out of the sky.
We were gonna talk about it, but
that is way more interesting.
Balloon 1, Balloon 2, fucking car. Like, what the hell's flying up there?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh well, we apologize. We'll get better next time. We'll try not to get distracted with the squirrel.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, we'll probably we'll get distracted
squirrel.
again.
The squirrel's more interesting. Sometimes it's moving quickly.
It does. Yeah.
It's like, what's that?
There it is.
What is that?
That's hilarious. But it's I mean, it's obviously it's a lot more fun to think that those were UFOs and shit. You know.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. I don't know though.
I
there
agree
are
with you.
stories of there are things that make you think that maybe they have shot down alien vehicles before, and things like Roswell's like, well, if they can crash, maybe they can be shot down. And so it's like maybe we're just dealing with a spectrum of technology of development, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to say. It seems more likely that it's some sort of drone or
yeah,
something.
no, you're right. I mean, realistically, those things move pretty quick, and I would think that they, for one, we wouldn't even see them necessarily. Like, people wouldn't see them. Why would they admit any of it? All of a sudden, they admit, "Oh, we just shot this thing down." If it were a real, like an actual,
if it was an alien spacecraft, I think that there is reason to think that has happened, and obviously you'll never hear about it officially,
right?
Or maybe maybe one day, but.
And that's what I mean. I just it makes more sense that those would be some type of man-made things that were up there.
They're more simple,
and
not
like
zipping
Izzo
around.
says, to distract us. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
that makes perfect sense. I didn't even think about that.
They didn't even shoot anything down.
I perfectly agree with that. That's a great perspective. Yeah. So, let's see. We shot down weather balloons while the Tic Tacs.
I mean, yeah.
Watched.
Realistically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're watching us. Of course, they're watching. They've been watching us since the 50s. Since the 40s, really. Since we dropped those 2 bombs.
There are sightings way before that.
Yeah, no, but I mean, they've been heavily watching us since then.
It is interesting the correlation with sightings and the nuclear explosions.
Exactly.
It probably is related.
When the monkeys started to blow themselves up,
that's when you get a little concerned.
They go, when they're shooting each other and killing each other on the land, that's fine. But when they start, throwing bombs that can get off planet,
and they're on the cusp of technology where they can like bring those bombs to another planet. Yeah, you get a little bit concerned.
Monkeys in space,
like,
man.
Shit.
Yeah.
Someone got that phone call. Hey, so the monkeys, they did a thing.
Like,
what?
Hey,
what?
Hey.
What did they do?
So the guy's name is but he speaks English.
Yeah, he speaks perfect English.
I'm such an idiot. His name's Jim, clearly.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, you still orbiting that stupid little planet by the whatever they would call the sun?
The ones with the dolphins, right? Yeah. Well, the
ones
monkeys,
with the dolphins, yeah.
The monkeys on that planet did a thing.
They're fucking doing things now.
Yeah.
You didn't notice?
Fucking crazy things, man. They got nukes and shit.
They're doing that thing that we used to do, I don't know, fucking like 3 trillion years ago.
3 trillion. I'm pretty sure the universe is 13.9
that's not true
billion years.
Not true at all. That's just this universe. The multiverse has been around forever.
If you could just jump multiverses. And also that's based on we don't have really complete data on how big how old the universe is.
That's true. It's based on some old ideas. Who knows if they're real or not?
And calculated from basically a single point in time when you consider the scale. It's such a small, it's like the analogy I've had, like, so people talk about the age of the universe and they're looking at everything is expanding and that like one day everything's going to be expanded. It's going to be so far away. You're not going to be able to see galaxies. And I just I know there are alternative theories that aren't mainstream that no one even considers. Like, one is like that the universe has a particular shape where so we're going around the top of something, and that motion gives the illusion that everything is moving away from us, but it's not really, and eventually we'll come around and things might look like they're coming back closer to us, but if you think about like, so we're measuring everything based on what we see and trying to calculate, and we're basically measuring it off of like the last 100 years or so worth of data. So like if you throw a baseball and you consider the entire arc of that baseball, 100 billion years, spending 100 years on that baseball near the start of that throw, you're not going to calculate any deviation. You're not going to be able to calculate any slowing down of the velocity or anything like that. So you're going to calculate that. It's just going to zip straight off and away. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to see that arc.
Yeah.
And so I think that us trying to claim we know something about the age of the universe and where it's going and what's happening is naive. Give it a couple billion years and we might have a better idea.
That's a good analogy there that you used with the ball. That makes a lot of sense because people don't think of things like
if
that.
The entire arc represents 100 billion years. Take any 100-year segment of it. You're not going to calculate the curve at all. Yeah. You're not going to see any of that. You're not going to see any deceleration or
it would take a massive span of years to be able to do it, and not in the span of the few hundred years that we've actually been really looking at.
Maybe 100 million years you could get somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. But,
yeah. On that very
that's a good point to end this.
It's a good time to end this podcast.
End this internet broadcast that we've been doing.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for commenting. Obviously, like and subscribe to the channel, I should say. And look for our videos during the week because we do segments of the live broadcast. So if you missed anything, no problem. You'll see it over the week in a segment. And please feel free to comment all the time. We love the comments. We like to shuck and jive in the show.
A little bit of banter.
Yeah, we like the banter back and forth, right? Sometimes, like Gizzo did there, you'll have a great point that we didn't even think about, and now I'm on board. I think it should be the Tyler and Gizzo show at this point.
Now I'm on board.
Yeah, I think I got to step aside because I'm dumb.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
Thanks, everybody. See you next